the way to build wealth in this country, and there's no question about it, is to keep your money away from the government. And you're going to follow my general rules of life. Sort of like you don't cook bacon while you're naked. It's that important. Remember, if you have a plan, you have more money for you now, more for retirement, and plenty more for your loved ones. And most of that can be tax-free, so you can enjoy your money.
Americans have an estimated $16 trillion in tax-deferred savings, including IRAs and 401ks. And the IRS is waiting to grab up to 90% of your hard-earned cash. Ed Slott will show you how to protect it. The Wall Street Journal called Ed Slott the best source of IRA advice. And USA Today said it would be tough to find anyone who knows more about IRAs than CPA Slott. Ed Slott is recognized as the leading expert about tax-deferred savings and is on a mission to help you and your family keep all the money you've worked so hard to accumulate in Stay Rich Forever and Ever. Now, here's Ed Slott.
Okay, thank you and welcome everyone. Well, what's more fun than spending time with a CPA talking about taxes? Well, I'll tell you, it's the taxes that will determine how much fun you're really going to have with your life savings, your retirement money. That's what we're talking about today. When I use the term IRA, which I'll be using quite a bit today, I'm using that as an umbrella term. So when I say IRA, that means all your retirement money. So it's your 401k, your 403b, your company pension plan, all of that tax-deferred money. So what is tax-deferred? Well, that's easy. That's kind of like your deal with the devil. And as with any deal with the devil, there's a day of what? Reckoning. And they have a name for that date. It's called your required beginning date. That's the date that our government has decided that they're just sick and tired of waiting for you to drop dead and they want their money back. That was always the case. That's the income tax. This money's also subject to estate taxes. This is highly taxed money. But here's the thing. Who's going to get that money? Do you ever have those dreams? Sitting around thinking, well, I've worked my whole life. Now I want to enjoy it. Who do you envision when you think about those days, spending your money? I'll tell you who you're all thinking about, because I know. Uncle Sam. Well, that's who's going to get your money, because Uncle Sam has a plan and you don't, and the one with the plan wins. That's what we're talking about today on today's program, creating a plan so you can have more money for you today, more money for your retirement, and more money for your loved ones, and more of it tax-free. And anybody can do it, and that's what we're going to show you in this program. But you need a plan, what I call an exit strategy. You put the money in, do you have a plan to get it out? Because it's the way you take it out that will determine how much you keep and how much goes to the government. Most people have no plan. And we have a bad situation in this country. Remember, taxes right now are very low. I know nobody will ever say that, but taxes are very low. This may be the lowest tax rates you'll ever see. But we're hitting a perfect storm of financial disaster that are going to sink a lot of boats. I call it the ship, S-H-I-P. And when the ship hits the fan, taxes are going to go through the roof. What do I mean by the ship? S, Social Security. H, health care. I, income tax. Taxes have to go up. P, pensions. Somebody's got to pay for all of this. Who do you think it's going to be? You and me. I call this new economy we're entering a yo-yo economy. Y-O, Y-O. You're on your own. Businesses are out. They don't have pensions anymore. Look at the headlines. Look at this piece from the cover of the paper. These are not stories in the back of the paper. Traditional pensions are almost gone. Is employer-provided health insurance next? Look at this one. This you may have seen. The first baby boomer came to collect. Here's the first baby boomer. First baby boomer came to collect Social Security. There are 78 million people online behind her. Who's going to pay for this? It's going to come from taxes. Taxes are going to have to be increased. Look at this piece. Federal finances a mess. This is a story about the top accountant in the country who won't even sign our government's financial statements. He says our government has made a whole lot of promises that in the long run it cannot possibly keep without huge tax increases. So what does that mean? That means Congress is going to have to raise this money. And they know one thing about raising money. They know one thing about taxes, and they learned this from the feudal system. The best people to tax are dead people. They don't vote, they don't complain, and they don't write letters to their congressmen. Which dead people do you think Congress is most interested in? That's right, rich, dead people. They're not interested in poor people. They're horrible customers. They say they like poor people, but they don't really like them. Which rich, dead people do you think our Congress is most interested in? The rich, dead people that have the most money that has not yet been taxed. We're all in the soup. We all did everything right because our tax system is a penalty on savers. That doesn't sound fair. We put money in IRAs, in 401ks, in company plans. We did everything right, but that money hasn't been taxed yet. Now the government has the advantage of being able to change the rates at the end of the game when we reach our hands in there to collect. That doesn't seem fair. And if you're wondering, how high can taxes get? Well, I'll give you a little history lesson. It wasn't that many years ago, in the early 80s, the top federal tax bracket was 70%. But even a few years after that, the combined tax on retirement accounts, estate and income tax, was 95%. 55% estate tax and 40% income tax. 95%. And even at that time, can you imagine Congress sitting around saying 95% tax on retirement accounts? We're just leaving people with too much of their own money. And they went and created a third tax on top of the already existing 95%, a 15% excise tax. We used to call it the success tax, the excess accumulations tax. Another 15% on top of the already existing 95%. This went on until about 1995 when one sorry beneficiary inherited a large IRA and got hit with all three taxes, what I call the trifecta of taxation. His combined rate was 103%. In other words, he was a negative beneficiary. They wanted him to kick in. And he said, but I don't even know the guy. And they said, but he's your father. And he went to tax court in one of the biggest taxpayer-friendly landmark rulings of all time. In that case, the judge said to the IRS, no longer can the IRS take more than 100% of what a person has. Thank you very much. It's a nutty system. But we have to take the position, when we do our planning, that there will be taxes, estate taxes, income taxes, because we know the government needs the money. So we have to create a plan, because if you don't create a plan, you get the government plan. That's how the government gets all their money, from people doing nothing. We can create a plan where you can end up with more for you now, more for your retirement, and more for your family, and most of it tax-free, and in some cases, all of it tax-free. We want more, more, more. You know, the way I start this with people, because most people don't know what to say, I might say something to the effect of, where do you want your money to go? Remember I talked to you about where do you want your money to go? Here's a little survey. Let's do a little survey. How many of you would pick, and I have a list of places where you might want your money to go here. How many would pick the first item on the list, the nursing home? No? All right, the second item, the Internal Revenue Service. No? Well, then on the list is children, grandchildren, a charity. That's unusual you said that, because these are official statistics. This is the order that over 90% of estates are consumed in. Nursing home, Internal Revenue Service second. How many of you would like to change that order? So let's get into this. I'll start with an open-ended question like, who's going to get your IRA when you die? Most people don't know what the heck to say. So you know what they say? I don't know, look at my will. And I'm not talking about the people, the cheapos, who got a will off the internet for $1. You know where I heard the new cheapos are getting their wills and trusts? Bed, Bath, and Beyond. I guess in the Beyond section. I'm not talking about the cheapos. I'm talking about somebody like you. I say, who's going to get your IRA when you die? And you proudly say, look at my will. I didn't get a cheapo will. I went to the best attorney in town. I paid tens of thousands of dollars. So here's what I'll do. I'll say, look, I'm not an attorney, so I'm not going to give you a legal opinion on this. But let's play a game. Let's take this will of yours and turn it over face down and make certain assumptions about it. First assumption, you went to the best guy in town. Let's assume it's the best will that's ever been written. It's got every bell and whistle and trust and tax-saving provision known to man. It's the best will that's ever been written. It's perfect. Now I'll hit you with the follow-up question. So tell me, how do you own your assets? And most people might say, most couples might say, well, we have a house we own jointly. We have some joint bank, broker, investment accounts, pensions, IRAs, life insurance, Social Security. Isn't that list of assets pretty much the typical estate of just about every couple in America? So how much of this typical estate do you think is covered by this perfect will? Take a guess. None of it! Because most property passes outside of these documents, including what may be your largest single asset, that IRA, that 401k, that retirement account. Look, you own a house jointly, you die, who gets it? The surviving joint owner, the girlfriend. I have seen the spouse in some cases, it happens. Regardless of what it says in the will, it overrides the will, so you need a plan for your retirement savings, that exit strategy, because it's not covered here, and it shouldn't be. See, retirement is like a football game. They have a saying in football, the score at halftime is irrelevant. Give me the score at the end of the game, and then I'll tell you who won. It's the same thing with your retirement savings. A football game has two halves, the first half and the second half. It's the score at the end of the game, how much you keep. That's what we care about. The first half of the retirement game is the accumulation phase, where you accumulate, you build your retirement savings. The second half is the distribution phase. It's in the second half of the game where this game is won or lost. But most people don't play in the second half. A lot of people say, well, I'm happy. I have accumulated all the money I'll ever need for retirement, so I'm done. And they go into the locker room, pat themselves on the back. Meanwhile, the IRS is coming out. They're playing the third and fourth quarter. They're playing nobody. So they win. Because it's their exit strategy, not yours. Because it's their plan, not yours. It's so important to play in the second half of the game, where you can actually end up with more, not less. But most people don't know about it. See, it doesn't matter how much you make. I don't care how much you make. It's how much you keep. I don't care how much you make. If you give it all back to the government at the end, all you did was build a savings account for the government. Let's take an example. Let's pick out a good investor. This guy here looks like a good investor. What's your name?
Chris.
Chris. Okay, you know what a better name might have been? Rich. Like in Stay Rich Forever and Ever? That's what we're talking about. But let's take Chris as an example. He looks like a good investor. Chris has this IRA, and for 30 years, he's made 30% a year, every year for 30 years. Has he done a good job?
Yes.
30% a year, every year for 30 years. Has he done a good job? Yes. The answer is so far. It's only halftime. We don't know how much Chris and his family are keeping until we find the score at the end of the game. They have a saying in the record business, you're only as good as what? Your last hit. That's all anybody on this earth cares about. Tell me what you've done for me lately. The score at the end of the game. So let's finish the Chris story. Chris dies. It happens. And like most people, Chris's family loses 70 to 80% of all of those gains because they didn't have a plan in the second half of the game. So tell me, what do you think will be the last thing Chris's family remembers about Chris? The last hit. Now somebody will say, but kids, you don't understand. Your dad made 30% a year, every year for 30 years. It hasn't been done in the history of the world. And the kids will say, no, you don't understand. We're broke. And it's his fault. And now we have to get jobs and everything. Thanks to him. He blew it. He dropped the ball. Chris dropped the ball at the critical moment. It can happen to anybody. It happens to most people. It happens to most people because most of them don't know about the second half of the game and have advisors that also don't know about the second half of the game. Many advisors can help you build money, but very few advisors have the specialized knowledge to create a plan in the second half of the game. Chris dropped the ball. The reason I keep using that saying, it comes from a famous baseball player in my area in New York. Big World Series, big rivalry. The Brooklyn Dodgers versus the New York Yankees. The Brooklyn Dodgers are one strike away from winning the World Series. In other words, they get strike three, they win the World Series. Well, they get strike three. But the catcher, Mickey Owen, drops the ball. Next batter up for the Yankees, Joe DiMaggio. P.S. The Yankees win the World Series. And this poor guy is forever known as the guy who dropped the ball. That's where the saying came from. Well, he's died recently. And I have his obituary right here. And wouldn't you know it, the headline in the poor guy's obituary, guy who dropped the ball dies. That's the last thing they'll ever remember about this poor guy. But if you know anything about baseball, listen to this. And this was way down in the obituary. Owen had a .995 fielding percentage that season and set a National League record for catchers with 476 consecutive chances without an error. It hasn't been matched since, probably never will be. It says here, though, but it was the lapse in the 41 World Series that came to define his career. When I saw this, I said, well, that's the same as the Chris story or any of your stories. That's all they'll ever remember about you. It doesn't matter how much you made. It's how much stayed in the family, how much of it stayed away from the government. Do you want to build a savings account for the government? That's what most people do. So I call this the retirement savings time bomb. Who do you think is most at risk of getting hit with this? Well, obviously, it's the people with the most in retirement savings. As I said, the tax system, our tax system is a penalty on savers. So the people most at risk are the people who have saved the most. But here, who's at the heart attack risk? The people where most of their net worth, that may be all of us, that's a lot of people, is tied up in some sort of retirement account. The retirement savings time bomb sounds bad, but anybody can avoid it if you have a plan. And that's what we're going to create for you today. So you can have more money for you now, more money for your retirement, and more for your loved ones. Remember I talked about the ship, SHIP, hitting the fan, causing financial disaster, not being the person who dropped the ball? Because we want to have a plan. So that's what we're going to talk about right now. How to use the tax code, what I call the 3 biggest benefits in the tax code, to create a plan that can actually leave you more money for you now and maybe millions more than you ever had for your family later on, and much of that can be tax-free. I'm going to give you a dramatization of the problem because first you really have to see how this unfolds. I'm going to use a big number. $10 million IRA. Now you might say, who has $10 million in an IRA? First, you never know. Second, if you can lose $10 million, you can lose whatever you have. And the less you have, the more important it is to protect what you have. So I'm going to do this in slow motion. But you will see the unraveling of the taxes. Let's say you have a $10 million IRA. It's the only asset in the estate. You die. What happens in 9 months? You have estate taxes, because we're going to assume there's going to be some kind of tax. What else happens in 9 months? That's right, you have a baby. Is it different here? If you think about it, life's like a bell curve. They give you 9 months to get into the world and 9 months to get out. Little tax history there. That's where they got the 9 months on the estate tax. All right, you have a $10 million IRA. It's the only asset in the estate. You die. What happens in 9 months? Let's make the numbers easy. You have to come up with $5 million in estate tax. Where are you going to get it from? That IRA. I said it was the only asset. But you take $5 million out of an IRA, that's $5 million of taxable income on one return in one tax year. So let's see how this plays out in our dramatization. You die, $10 million IRA, your family has to come up with $5 million. They take it out of the IRA. They take $5 million out of the IRA. They're walking it over here to Uncle Sam, the estate tax guy. But what step did I skip? Income tax. I crossed over a street right up the middle here I call Income Tax Avenue, where Uncle Sam Jr., his son, the income tax guy, is standing there, and he says, great, you landed on my space, 40%. 40% of what? Well, you took $5 million out. I get $2 million. So you give him $2 million. You continue on to Uncle Sam Sr., the estate tax guy, and said, look, I was on my way over here. I had all $5 million. I didn't talk to anybody. You know, I'm from New York. I got mugged. Guy grabbed me for $2 million, so I'm short $2 million. Don't worry about that guy. He's my son, Uncle Sam Jr. He does income tax. I do estate tax. We work together. Good. You guys settle it up. No, he gets his and I get mine. You're short $2 million. Better go back and get it in 9 months. No problem. Still a few crumbs left back in this account. You started with $10 million. How much do you have left? 5. What do you need now? 2. You have to pull out $2 million. You pull out $2 million. You're walking it over here to Uncle Sam, the estate tax guy, minding your own business. You hit Income Tax Avenue. There's Uncle Sam Jr., and he says, great, you landed on my space again. Now I have 12 hotels, 40%. 40% of what? I just gave you all that money. $800,000, 40% of the $2 million you took out. So you give him $800,000. You continue on to Uncle Sam Sr., the estate tax guy, said, look, I was on my way over here with the $2 million I was short. I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't look at anybody. Bang! Same greedy guy hits me over the head. I'm short $800,000. Well, better go back and get it in 9 months. This goes on and on and on. Actually, I did it in slow motion, but it happens instantaneously. In this book of mine, The Retirement Savings Time Bomb, I actually did the walk on page 152. It didn't even take me the whole page. I stopped when I got down to the last 12 cents, and I felt the point was made. That's what I call the Retirement Savings Time Bomb. You lose it. See, the point is, you have to understand there's a problem. Why would you be interested in a solution? This is why most people don't play in the second half of the game. Why would you be interested in a solution if you didn't think you have a problem? I'm telling you, you have a problem. What advice would I have given that $10 million guy if I was able to consult with him before he became the croquis? That's a legal term. Croquis. I would have told him, you have to have a plan. The IRA is not sacred. The reason most people lose their retirement money is because they just look at it. It comes down to one word. That's the big problem: admiration. People just like to look and admire their work. For example, I have people that love to show me their IRA statements, and they say, oh, look, I have $1.2 million in my IRA. And I say, that's not your money. You're not keeping any of that. It's just temporarily on your letterhead. Don't you get it? But they love to look at it. I'm telling you, the IRA is not sacred. Either you use it, you leverage it, or you lose it. And this is where we use the 3 biggest benefits in the tax code. And here they are. Number 1, the single biggest benefit in the tax code is the tax exemption for life insurance. Now, just so you know where I'm coming from, I do not sell life insurance. I do not sell stocks, bonds, funds, annuity, no products. but I believe in this concept. I'm just a tax advisor, but I believe in this concept, and you should too. In fact, I have millions of dollars of life insurance myself. I have so much life insurance, that's why I can't eat at home at night. I'm a big believer in this. What would I have told this guy if I was able to consult with him with the 10 million? Has 10 million in an IRA? Take 5 million out now. What do I care? It's going in the garbage anyway. I can do better things with it now. The last thing on earth you want is for taxes and post-death expenses to be paid from an IRA. Remember, if most of your money is sitting in a retirement account that hasn't been taxed yet, the last thing you want is to leave your beneficiaries the mess of having to pay those taxes, and we're going to assume there's going to be taxes and post-death expenses from retirement money, because if you do that, you get into this cycle of taxation, this tax on tax that eats away at the account until it's gone. Better to have other money. See, life insurance money comes out income tax free. And if you're working with an advisor who really knows their stuff, they can make it estate tax free as well. We want tax free. So what would I have told this guy? Take out the $5 million. We can do better things with it now. Even if the income tax was 50%, that still leaves you $2.5 million to buy enough life insurance to replace this entire estate and then some, and have it come out all tax-free. See, you have to look at the long-term big picture. Most people don't do that. When you talk about life insurance, the first thing people say, well, it costs too much. I'm telling you, what does it cost not to do it? Look at the score at the end of the game. You lose it all. Here's the way I do planning with people. I like to use a yellow legal pad like this. Using my football analogy we talked about earlier, the score at the end of the game, the reason I like the legal pad, because it kind of looks like a football grid. It has all the lines there, and the last line is the goal line. Not a good goal for estate planning, which is what we're talking about. It's death. You know, whenever I say that, I'm reminded of this attorney friend of mine who says, oh, I never like to use the word death when I talk to clients. I say, well, what do you call it? He says, I like to use the term when the will matures. I call it what it is. When you're dead, you're dead. And here's what I say to people. See, I don't care what happens in the middle of the game. You get beat up, you get tackled, maybe you pay some insurance premiums. I only care about the score at the end of the game, how much you keep. So I would say to you, if I could create a plan that after you and your spouse cross over into the great beyond, your family gets your entire net worth, everything you had or much more, would that be a good plan? Oh. See, with the life insurance, you're leveraging IRA money now. Yes, you pay tax now, but look at the score at the end of the game, what you get tax-free later. It's many times the amount you take out now, plus it's tax-free later. You're turning small amounts of money into maybe millions tax-free, and many people can do this. The key is the IRA is not sacred. You don't just sit there and look at it. You use it, you leverage it, or you lose it. The second biggest benefit in the tax code, I mentioned it before briefly, the estate tax exemption. Currently, it's $2 million. That's $2 million tax-free for estate tax per person. So that means if you're a married couple, that's two people, that's $4 million of protection. Do most couples get $4 million of protection? No. Everybody knows the answer is no, even though it's a freebie in the tax code. Why? Because they leave everything to each other. That's what most spouses do. Even the few people that have wills, they have what I call love me wills. I leave it to you, you leave it to me, we both die, we leave it to the government. If they have anything, that's what they have. So how do you make sure you get to use your $2 million exemption? By leaving the property to someone other than the spouse. You know what the cash cost of blowing a $2 million exemption is? $900,000. That's the tax your family will pay voluntarily, for no reason at all, because they blew a $2 million exemption. Better option? Find $2 million or whatever you have. Remember, all of these numbers I'm talking about can be lower. I'm using $2 million because that's the exemption. So this works with $2 million or less, but you want to use that exemption for someone other than the spouse, which brings us to the third of the three biggest tax benefits in the tax code, something we call the stretch IRA. Now, I'm going to tell you what it is, because I found whenever I talk to clients about the Stretch IRA and I didn't define it first, here's what happened. In 2 weeks, I get a call from the client. I'm at the bank. You said get a Stretch IRA. They don't have them. I said, go to Bed Bath & Beyond. Have everything. The Stretch IRA is the ability to parlay huge amounts of wealth using the tax code and using younger beneficiaries, your children and grandchildren. This actually came from the tax code and from the IRS, where you could take a certain amount, and as long as you name a living, breathing person on the IRA beneficiary form, remember earlier I said not in the will, on the IRA beneficiary form, if you name them as the beneficiary, after you die, your children or grandchildren can what we call stretch or extend distributions out over their lifetime. Look, the way to build wealth in this country, and there's no question about it, is to keep your money away from the government. But another way to get the government off your back is to make Uncle Sam wait so long for their money that they can never catch up. That's the beauty of this Stretch IRA. That's why I call this the great parlay of wealth. I'm going to use another example now with a $2 million IRA. And again, I'm using $2 million, might sound like a big number, because that's the current estate exemption. But this works if you have $2,000 in an IRA. $20,000, $200,000, $1 million too, any number up to $2 million. But I'm using $2 million because that's the estate exemption. So let's say you have a $2 million IRA, and instead of leaving it to your spouse, you leave it to your 40-year-old daughter. You die. How much of that $2 million does she keep? Every cent! Because you passed it through the $2 million estate exemption, which would have been wasted if you left it to the spouse. She starts with 100 cents on the dollar, all $2 million, estate tax-free. And if this is a Roth IRA, we haven't talked about this before, but I'm a big fan of that because, again, it means paying tax now, but at the end of the game, it all comes out tax-free. If this is a Roth IRA, it's income tax-free as well, totally tax-free. So if you named your daughter as the beneficiary on this $2 million IRA, she starts with every cent, all $2 million, and she gets to stretch it out or extend distributions over her IRS life expectancy of 43.6 years. What would that come to? $15,871,000 tax-free. I saw someone writing down, that's a lot of money. It's the leverage. You don't have to start with a lot to end up with a lot. And guess what? Now that you know you've taken care of your family, more money for you now, more money you can spend in retirement because they're already taken care of, tax-free. Let's get really extreme. Instead of a 40-year-old daughter, what if you left it instead to a 1-year-old grandchild? The life expectancy of a 1-year-old is 81.6 years. What would that come to? In our same example, $2 million, we already know it's estate tax-free, and if it's a Roth IRA, it's income tax-free. $2 million over 81.6 years, compounded at 8% like we did the last example, $163 million tax-free. The government can never catch up. This is what I'm talking about, using the 3 biggest benefits in the tax code, where most of you will lose 70% of everything you have. Using the 3 biggest benefits in the tax code, your family ends up with millions more than you ever had, all tax-free, which means you don't have to worry about taking care of them now because you have more money now for you to spend now and enjoy it. That's what it's about. You don't have to worry anymore. Anybody can do this. These are not secrets. I'm not telling any secrets. These things are in the tax code. Anybody can use them. Most people don't. But let's go back to the Stretch IRA for a minute, because I kind of made it sound easier than it is. I said all you have to do is name a beneficiary and your children will get to stretch it over their lifetimes. The IRS actually created rules where they thought they made it easy. They thought they created rules. They said, just name any human being with a life expectancy. What's a human being? Anybody with a pulse and a birthday counts. Can you fog a mirror? You count too. So they said, we are creating a system where all you have to do is name a beneficiary, and when you die, that beneficiary can stretch or extend distributions over their lifetime using that great parlay of wealth. So the IRS thought they created a system where everybody gets the stretch IRA. Here's the truth. Nobody gets it because people are sloppy. You have to have a beneficiary form. It's not in the will. It's the beneficiary form that will determine the ultimate amount of money this will grow to. Here's a story called Pension Pickle about a woman who worked for the New York City school system. How long do you think you have to work for the New York City school system to accumulate $1 million in your retirement account? Anyway, she died. What did her husband get? Did he lose 70, 80% like most people? No. He lost everything. Nothing. He got zero. He lost $1 million. He got zero. Why? 50 years ago, when she started at the school system, she was single. Who did she name as her beneficiary? Her mother, her uncle, and her sister. Well, her mother and her uncle have since died, but not her sister, who got every cent. It's called Pension Pickle. Broke widower loses $1 million to in-law. And he complains here, she won't give me a cent. Some people are laughing at that. Look at the caption under this picture of the couple dancing. Bruce Friedman wasn't wife Ann's beneficiary because she didn't update her files when they wed. 50 years ago? This is not the exception. This is the rule. This is what's happening. But it's not going to happen to you. You know why? Because you're going to follow my general rules of life. Sort of like you don't cook bacon while you're naked. It's that important. My general rules of life. Get a copy of that beneficiary form and check it. Make sure you have primary beneficiaries, contingent beneficiaries. Work with your advisor to check this. This is the single most important document to you. This guarantees the stretch IRA, that parlay of wealth, and nobody in America can find it anywhere. It's the beneficiary form. But go one step further. It has to be updated as well. It has to be current. Even if you have it, make sure you have the right beneficiaries. Because things happen, what I call life events. You have a birth, a death, a marriage, a divorce, you had a new grandchild. These things have to be changed. If you get one thing out of this program, get this checked. This guarantees you that parlay of wealth. Well, I've given you the 3 biggest benefits in the tax code. Anybody can use it. Most people don't. But if you do, you'll have the plan. Remember, the only people who get the government plan are the people who don't plan. I've given you a plan which gives you more money for you to enjoy now, more money for retirement, and more money for your family, and so much of it tax-free. Now we have to put it all together in a plan. You first have to take control of your money. And that's a big problem for a lot of people. What I'm talking about is people who are retired. Maybe you had money in a 401k and now you left your company, but you leave the money in the 401k. That's not taking control of your money. That's leaving your money in the old house. They're not going to watch it. You know, sometimes people come up to me at programs like this and they say, I have $850,000 in my 401k. It's all the money I'll ever have because I'm retiring. There won't be any more. So I better watch that money. And I say, yeah, you better watch that money. You have one chance to get this right. This is your life savings. It's the single biggest chunk of money you'll ever handle at one time for many of you. You have one chance to get this right and move it correctly. It's like an eggshell. It breaks, it's over. You may want to talk to an advisor at this point that has specialized knowledge in getting this money either to an IRA or looking at some other tax advantages. It's generally best to take control of your money. You don't have the investment choices in a 401k. You have the universe of investment options to work with in your own IRA. For example, one that I want to talk about is annuities. Now, as I said before, in case you missed it, I don't sell annuities. I don't sell stocks, bonds, funds. I'm just a tax advisor. But this is your retirement money, and it has to last as long as you do. See, today, most people are not worried about dying anymore. They're worried about living too long and running out of money. Do you know that last year, the greeting card company, Hallmark, sold 85,000 100-year-old birthday cards? Do you have enough money to live that long? You don't want to run out of money, because what will you do if that happens? Here's a piece I saw a few years ago in this Kiplinger's magazine. I call it the centerfold for seniors. It's not that kind of centerfold. It's the magic words that people want to hear. Income forever. Those are the magic words. Even after all of this, most people, I wouldn't say they're happy with the government plan. They just may not realize there's another option, and they get the government plan. I don't want that to happen to you. That's why we're going to make sure that you implement a plan. How am I going to do that? Well, I started doing seminars like this, estate planning seminars, years ago, 25 years ago, 20 years ago, to build my own practice. And I used to do seminars, and when I did the seminars with people just like you, interested in conserving their money, keeping it from the government, I felt I made such a compelling case that I believed that when I finished the seminar, everybody in that room would follow me back to my office to make an appointment that night. Do you think that happened? No. Never! And I couldn't understand it. I think this is pretty important. So I found out what's keeping people from creating a plan. Because who wouldn't want what we're talking about for you and your family? I found out that when it comes down to it, everybody's got an excuse. So we're going to get them all off the table right now. Number one excuse, if I do an estate plan, I will die. Well, you got me there. What am I going to say to that one? It's true. But what's also true, if you don't do an estate plan or you don't have an exit strategy, you will also die with a big fat mess and your family will hate you. I thought I had what I call a killer close. You know what I mean by a killer close? The last line of the program, to get them to take action. And I used to end every seminar like this: do it for your kids. Well, I found the more I brought up the kids, the less likely anybody was to do anything. And I didn't know what I was doing wrong. And this went on for years, until years later, an attorney friend of mine, I was talking to him about this, and I said, you know, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. He says, well, what do you say at the end of the seminar? And I proudly say, do it for your kids. And he said, never say that. I said, why? He said, because people hate their kids. And it hit me, the guy was right. Every time I brought up estate planning, it all came out. He forgot my birthday in 1962. It all comes out. All of a sudden, she has a memory. The Marquis de Legre, one of the famous wills of all time, had a provision in his will that said, to my son, I leave the pleasure of earning a living. For 20 years, he thought the pleasure was mine. So see, obviously you all agree with him, so I know how you think. So I'm going to give you the secret to getting this done. Never say do it for the kids. The secret, do it for the grandchildren. Look at you, you see? It's a mush word. You say grandchildren, where do I sign? Even my meanest client says, of course I want to do it for the grandchildren. I'm not an animal! If you think about it, why do the grandchildren and the grandparents get along so well? They have a common enemy. The grandchildren are the bonus that you get for not killing your kids. So I know how you think. I hear this a lot. I don't want to do estate planning because after I'm dead, the kids won't visit me anyway. Where? In the cemetery? How would you know? But if that's keeping you from doing planning, I've got something for you. You want to make sure you get visited? In the headstone, we install an ATM machine. Guaranteed 5-10 visits a day. The place will be mobbed. You know, when I was a kid, if I didn't do something right away, my mother had this saying, "What are you waiting for, a special occasion?" You ever hear that one? Well, I'm saying the same thing to you. What are you waiting for, a special occasion? You ever go to a funeral, see the dead guy? What do they say about him? That's right, he looks good. If you notice, he's always the best looking guy in the place. Why? Because somebody finally went back to his closet, got out his good suit, because now it's a special occasion. You get it? That's too late. So how do you begin this? Well, if you look at the financial shows on TV or read some of the financial magazines or papers, they say, well, if you have some money, maybe start gifting. You know, you can make those gifts of $12,000 a year to kids and grandkids. That sounds great, but don't bother with that. You know why? Because I found in my experience, most people are not going to write the checks anyway. And do you think the grandkids will ever know you gave them $12,000? What the heck does that mean to them? Here's the way to start planning. And the clients of mine that have done this and got into it, it changed their lives. Don't give anybody any money. Give them your time. You worked for this money your whole life. It's okay to enjoy it. Enjoy it with the people who are going to get it anyway. They're going to get it anyway. Wouldn't you love to be there with them, to enjoy it with them? Take the kids on a cruise or go to Disney World. And when you go, take a video camera and a still camera. And the clients of mine that did this, they come back to the office with the grandkids. It's the greatest feeling. They say, oh, here's a picture of me and Mickey and Minnie and Grandma and Grandpa. Those pictures will outlive you by 100 years, and you feel great because you see what your life's work has created. You see the enjoyment. These kids are going to get the money anyway. Wouldn't you love to be there with them, to see them enjoy it? Isn't it better to give with warm hands than cold hands? That's where it really begins, because you feel so good about yourself. You say, I want to open a college fund. I want to go on another trip. I want to enjoy my money. There's a lot to this. I know in my own situation, 5 years ago, my dad passed away. And I was the only one in the hospital with him when the doctor came in and said, you have 2 to 3 months to live. Well, the doctors were off by 2 to 3 months. He died 6 days later. But his first words upon hearing the news were, I've got no complaints. And you know why he said that? Because 5 years earlier, I had this talk with him. I told him to enjoy his money. He said, I always wanted to join a golf club. I said, Dad, join the golf club. He says, but that's only for rich people. I said, Dad, you're rich. And he joined the golf club. I tell you, it was one of the greatest things he ever did, the joy he got from it. Plus, me, my brother, and my sister, the grandkids are all in local towns. So the kids were there for everything. You know what goes on in these clubs? They have something on every holiday. If they don't have a holiday, they make one up. Clam bakes, you name it. We even started going there for Thanksgiving. No cooking, no cleaning, no fighting. The kids were all over the place. It was the greatest time of his life. One of the last things he said to me in that last week, he said, if I can just make it 2 more weeks, I get the 5-year discount on the club membership. He didn't make it. He didn't get the 5-year discount, but he also told me, make sure your mother keeps the club membership, which she does. And it happens to be right across the street from where my 2 kids go to high school. And on special days, she would take the kids out of school to have lunch at the club with Grandma. This is where planning begins. This is what makes you feel it. This is what makes you realize what you lived your whole life for. It's okay to enjoy your money. Remember, if you have a plan, you have more money for you now, more for retirement, and plenty more for your loved ones. And most of that can be tax-free, so you can enjoy your money. But there are just some people that can't let go, and I'm directing this to the husbands in the audience that can't seem to spend money and enjoy it. Here's advice, not from me, but from a greater source, Dear Abby. Dear Abby, my husband hates to spend money. I cut my own hair and make my own clothes and have to account for every nickel I spend. Meanwhile, he has a stock of savings bonds put away that would choke a cow. How do I get some money out of him before we are both called to our final judgment? He says he's saving for a rainy day. Signed, 40 years Hitched. Dear Hitched, tell him it's raining! I'm telling you the same thing. It's raining now. If not now, when? I don't want any of you to have the situation. I remember a beneficiary came back to me. His mother, both parents actually died, and they lost all the problems I talked to you about. And I'll never forget what he said. He said, now I know what to do the next time my parents die. That's too late. It's about picking a plan, taking action. Let's go back to where we started in the beginning. Remember I asked you how many of you would like to see your estate, your life savings consumed in this order? I said first the nursing home, and none of you raised hands. Then I said the Internal Revenue Service, still no takers. Then of course children, grandchildren, a charity. This is the order. I'm telling you this again, that more than 90% of the estates in this country are consumed in. Do you want to change the order?
Yes.
Do you want more money for you, more money for retirement, and more money for your loved ones? Then do you want it tax-free?
Yes.
Do you want the government's hands out of your pockets?
Yes.
Anybody can do this. Most people don't because they don't take action. 5 frogs on a log, 3 of them decide to jump. How many are left? You're looking at me like dogs looking at ceiling fans. What's the name of the dog in Lassie? No help here. 5 frogs on a log, 3 of them decide to jump. How many are left?
2.
5 frogs on a log, 3 of them decide to jump. How many are left? 5. Why? They only decided to jump. Yeah, I'll go to another seminar next week. I probably won't get hit by a train tonight. When should you do this? 3 words. While you're breathing. 2 words. Right now. You can take advantage of what I'm talking about. Anybody can, or you can choose the government plan. After viewing this program, if you still take no action, it doesn't mean you didn't make a decision. It means you decided on the government plan, which is what most people do. That's what the government hopes you do. I hope we changed your mind. We can create a plan that will take care of you now for retirement and for your family and turn most of this money, maybe all of it, to tax-free money forever. That's how you stay rich forever and ever. Good luck to everybody. Thank you very much. Okay, now I'll be taking questions from all of you, so let's begin. Okay?
Hi, I really like the concept of the getting more life insurance. How do you accomplish that with the IRS money? Oh boy, the IRA money. Do you take out a large lump of money and place that in the...
Well, here's the thing.
Or is that money used to pay the premiums? I'm not quite sure how that works.
The point is, what I was trying to make, most people have most of their money in these IRAs. So if that's all the money you have, some people say, well, I never want to touch that. I don't want to pay any tax, so they do nothing. And that's where I said use it, leverage it, or lose it. And that's what most people do. They do nothing. So, of course, the last place I would ever take money for life insurance is from a taxable account. But if that's all you have, that's where it should come from. So you will have to pay a tax now, but you'll get a tax-free windfall forever later. Yes?
Ed, I'm thinking of retiring pretty soon, and I've got a substantial amount in my 401k. What are some of the options that are available to me after I leave my company?
That's one of the great questions that most people should be asking. You've saved your whole life. Now you're getting the biggest single check you'll ever see in one time, maybe bigger than the value of your house. Now, most people say the best option, as you heard me say, is probably do an IRA rollover, but there are other options. For example, you could keep it in the plan, which I would almost never do, But there are some reasons to do that, none of them really good. Move it to a new plan if you get a new job, but that's kind of the same thing as leaving it in the old plan. Or taking out the money and paying the tax. Now, why on earth would you ever do that? Well, there are reasons to that. I talked about one of them in the program, NUA, net unrealized appreciation. It's a huge tax benefit if you have company stock in your retirement account. Also, you might want to take advantage of 10-year averaging. So those would be reasons to take the money out and get tax-favored treatment. So that's something you should definitely discuss with a competent advisor, no question. Other than that situation, you're probably better off, generally, taking the money out, rolling it over to your IRA where you can take control of your money. And you should do that as what's called a trustee-to-trustee transfer, where you don't touch the money. It goes directly from your 401k to your own IRA without you touching the money in between. Otherwise, some bad things can happen if you put your hands on that money in between. For example, you could lose 20%. You will lose 20% in withholding tax if you take it out and take possession of the money. So generally, the best option is to do the IRA rollover. But there are reasons for the other options. This is a huge decision. It involves what may be your largest single check. I would never do this alone. You're being informed here, but I would go to an advisor who has specialized knowledge in this to guide you along the way. Yes?
I just want to be clear about this because it seems a little bit too good to be true. Are you saying that any life insurance beneficiary, any type of life insurance that I take out for a beneficiary will be tax-free?
Yes, it's tax-free, and I'm glad you asked again. It's the single biggest benefit in the tax code. I saw it in my own family when somebody inherited life insurance. They asked me, even though I helped them with it, they said, "Are you sure this is tax-free?" They even tried to talk to me on the phone lightly. They said, I got a check from the insurance. Is this legal? Yes, it's legal. What do I do with it? Put it in the bank. But won't they know? Yes, they'll know. It's tax-free. Life insurance comes out income tax-free. And as I said in the program, it can be estate tax-free as well if you're working with an advisor that can keep it out of your estate. It's tremendous leverage. Use it, leverage it, or lose it.
Hi, Ed.
Hi.
Excuse me. Great show. Thank you.
Thank you.
At what age do you have to, are you required to take out the minimum distribution?
That's generally at age 70 and a half. That's what we call your required beginning date. April 1st of the year following the year you turn age 70 and a half. Don't ask me where they came up with April 1st. It's like a cruel April Fool's joke or something. Nobody knows. You know, my interpretation is maybe you had two congressmen, you know, they were in a bar one night. One guy said 70, one guy said 71. They rolled down the hill. It's 70 and a half. Who even came up with this age and the date? But that's what it is. It's April 1st of the year following the year you turn age 70 and a half. There are some situations, specialized situations, if you have it, where you could delay it. That's, again, an area where you should talk to your own advisor to get some custom information for you.
Thank you, Ed, for the presentation. I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
I have a question. When my beneficiaries inherit, do they have to take required distributions? And if so, when should they start?
All right, death gets you out of pretty much everything in the tax code, but not required minimum distributions. Even after you're dead, your beneficiaries still have to take required distributions. And that's true even if it's a Roth IRA. Even though Roth IRA owners are not subject to required distributions during their lifetimes, Roth beneficiaries are. So beneficiaries must take required distributions. They will generally start in the year following the year of death. But if you happen to die and you didn't take your required distribution yet, believe it or not, it's still required, even though you're dead. A beneficiary has to take that distribution too.
Can I skip my children, leave my IRAs to my grandchildren?
Oh yeah, that's a common. The question was, if you didn't get it, can he skip his children and go to his grandchildren? Or who wouldn't sign up for that? Of course you can do that, and you should let him know. Yes?
Ed, what can I do if I can't find my beneficiary form?
Well, that's good that you even know it's missing. The worst thing that happens is people die and then the beneficiary comes to me and says, you know, Mom died, we're looking for the beneficiary form. Now she's dead. That's too late. So at least you know you have a problem. You can go back to the institution. If you're working with a financial advisor, that's best because they can do a lot of that legwork for you. Or if the money's in a 401k, you can talk to the company. Or if you're doing it on your own, you go back to the financial institution. That's the bank, broker, mutual fund company, any of the companies that are holding your IRA money. They should have one on file. And don't be surprised if they don't. You might discover that they can't find it either. But you can always set up a new one, and the beneficiary can be changed at any time. People used to think, because there were some rules years ago, that after you're 70 and a half, you can't change the beneficiary anymore. That's not the case. It hasn't been that case for years. You can always change the beneficiary. I was explaining this, I remember, to an 80-year-old client of mine, and I kept telling him, you can change it any time you want. And he says, now I get it. I call this my IRA leverage. I said, what are you talking about? He says, well, I just turned 80. We had a big birthday party. 2 kids didn't show. They're out. IRA leverage.
Hi, Ed.
Hi.
Thanks for all the great information. I just want to know, is this foolproof? Is there a chance the government might be able to change the rules concerning the life insurance exemption?
Sure, anything is possible, especially when the government goes broke. But I don't think so for the life insurance. Nobody knows, and I'll tell you why. For the same reason, you ever notice in the tax code there are huge tax incentives if you're willing to give to charity? You get a deduction, you get an estate deduction. Why do you think the government allows this? Because they know if you give more to charity, that's less than they'll have to take care of, less than they'll have to come up with. I believe the same thinking goes with life insurance. If you're taking care of your family, that's less than that they will have to provide. So you're taking the burden off of the government by being willing to spend money now. So I think that's an exemption. Also, the life insurance has a pretty good lobby that you can count on for some time to come.
Can I make more than one beneficiary for my IRA?
Yes, you can have, everybody in the audience here can be a beneficiary. No, but I want to expand on that. This is a very common question. Somebody has 3 kids. Of course you can name the 3 kids, but you have to be careful when you have more than one beneficiary, what we call multiple beneficiaries, that it's clear on the beneficiary form by using either a fraction, a percentage, the word equally if that's applicable, so you know who gets what. But yes, you can name as many beneficiaries as you want, and you can even split your IRAs into several IRAs, naming different beneficiaries on those IRAs.
Great program, Ed. I've been
Thanks.
looking at converting my IRAs over to a Roth, and I know if I do it now, I'm going to have to pay taxes. I know there's some advantages to waiting till 2010.
Yeah. First, as I said in the program, I'm a big believer in the Roth IRA. Yes, it means you have to pay some tax now, but remember what I said? It's better to pay tax now while I believe rates are still low and get it all tax-free in a Roth IRA when it counts at the end of the game. Now, there are all sorts of incentives in the tax code starting in 2010, we'll see what the law is when that comes around, where everybody can convert to a Roth. That's not the case now. For 2008 and 2009, if your income is over $100,000 or you file married separate, you cannot convert. Don't ask me again, why is it that if you file married separate, you can't convert? I guess the government doesn't like people who file separately. They think they're up to something or something. I don't know what it is. But those are the rules. But starting in 2010, those rules go away, and everybody qualifies to convert unlimited amounts of their IRA to a Roth IRA. And look at the deal. It shows you how much the government needs money. If you convert in 2010, which anybody can, you pay no tax in 2010. You get to include half the income in 2011, the other half in 2012. It's like the government is giving you an interest-free loan to build a tax-free savings account. This is the deal of a century, if it holds in 2010. So I'm a big believer in the Roth IRA, and you can even convert parts. You know, it's not an all or nothing. You can convert some now, some next year. A little at a time even is great.
Hi, Ed. Why did you say that my most critical planning was not done in my will?
Oh, that's a great question. I'll tell you why, because it's ironic, but the people who believe they've done the most planning, the ones that went to that attorney and worked with an accountant, they think, well, I spent my money, I have a will, I have a trust, I've got everything. They're the ones that blow this because they think somebody took care of this. I got to tell you, nobody took care of it. A lot of people think, well, I'm with a big bank, I'm with a big broker. They probably took care of it. No, they didn't. The IRA passes, if you want the big tax benefits like the stretch IRA, it passes by the beneficiary form, outside of the will and generally outside of the trust. So some people, most people who do the planning actually miss this because they think, well, I must have done everything right. I paid somebody thousands of dollars, an estate planning attorney, thousands of dollars to take care of it. I'm telling you, it's critical that you take care of it or bring it up with your advisor. A good advisor will mention it to you. Thank you all very much. Hi, I'm Ed Slott, and the name of this program is 10 Questions to Ask Your Financial Advisor. Let me tell you why I think this is an essential program to view. Many people say they have financial advisors, but how do you know if you have the right advisor? They have all kinds of alphabet soup of titles. Who knows what it all means? What you need to know is if you have the advisor with the right specialized training. Most advisors don't have the training that's needed in the second half of the game to make sure that when you pull your money out, you don't lose it all to the government or because your advisor didn't know a lot of the tax rules. Remember, the taxes are key here. This money has not yet been taxed. So you have to know how to get it out using the tax code, and there are ways to do it where you can actually end up with more money, but you have to have the guidance. This is complicated stuff, and you have to rely on someone else. But how do you know if you have the right advisor? I mean, what questions could you ask? For example, how would you know if you have the right dentist? Would you ask him, what's your procedure for taking out this tooth or something? You don't know the technical nature of it. They could tell you anything they want. You wouldn't know the difference. This area requires specialized knowledge in IRA distribution planning. So what I did for you in this program, I give you 10 questions you can ask your financial advisor. But I just said, well, how would you know if he's telling you the truth or giving you the right answer? I've created these questions strategically so you'll know. You ever go to buy something, maybe a major appliance or a car, and within 10 seconds, talking to the salesperson, you kind of know that this guy doesn't know what he's doing. Matter of fact, you ever have the experience that you start to say, I know more than him? Well, if you're talking about your life savings, which I think is a major purchase, you want to have the feeling that your advisor knows more than you. So that's how this test is designed. So you can tell, you can get that feeling. You can tell if the advisor is giving you the right answer. And then we're going to show you how to score this later. So here's the first question. I'm going to show you how to ask the question and how to evaluate the answers. And in many of these, I have what I call my BS detectors. So if they give you a certain answer, you'll know that it's the wrong answer. So here's the first question to start out with. You might say something like, I know this area requires specialized knowledge in IRA distribution planning. Do you have expertise in this area? Now, how would I know that? He might say yes, or she might say yes, but how would I know that? So you're going to ask them, you can gauge their response. Do you have expertise in this? Oh, yeah, I know it all. That's probably a bad answer. I've been studying this stuff my whole life, my whole professional life, for over 20 years, and I don't know all the answers. So that gives you a sense that you may be with the wrong person. But a way to dig deeper, all right, giving them the benefit of a doubt. There are advisors that know their stuff, and we're going to get to that at the end. Not many. I got to tell you, you know why I know that? I've trained more financial advisors in this specialized area than anyone else in the country. And I've got to tell you, about 99% don't know any of this. So you might be sitting there saying, Ed, are you saying only 1% of advisors know anything about this? No, it's much less. I rounded up to 1%. So this is pretty serious. So let's give them the benefit of doubt in question 1. Do you have specialized knowledge? They might say yes. A lot of people, you might go into a bank where a lot of people in some of these banks really are just clerks. They don't have this information. Remember, this is a plan for your life savings. It's got to be somebody who's really studying this, a financial advisor that has specialized training in this. So then you might follow up with question 2. Give them the benefit of the doubt. They say, yes, I know it all. Okay. All right. What books have you read on the topic? Well, gauge that response. So you don't have to know a lot when the guy starts, or the advisor starts flubbing around and finds a book. And here's a nice test. When they find a book, they say, oh, look, I have a book. Tell them to open the book. If it cracks when they open it, it's the first time that book's been opened. I would run. Anybody can tell that. So this is what I mean. These are answers you can pretty much get just by looking at the reaction. Then question number 3. What professional training do you take in IRA distribution planning? Again, this is an easy one to gauge the response. If they start going, I don't know, that's a bad response. Then you might follow up with, what courses or programs have you taken? And they might say, oh, I take courses all the time. Matter of fact, let me show you my full-color company brochure. That doesn't mean anything. When they tell you they've taken courses, this is what I mean by BS detectors, say, oh, interesting. Can you show me the last course manual from the last course you attended? Uh-oh. The last course manual, well, that was 10 years ago. That's a bad sign. I would run from that advisor. Then question number 4, are you starting to see the pattern here? It's very easy, without you knowing technical knowledge, to know if you're getting the right answers. That's why I created the test just this way. So even without technical knowledge in IRA distribution planning, you can tell if you're getting the real story from this advisor. And remember, this is your money. Don't be afraid to ask these questions. Because I'll tell you what, if they blow it, no amount of BS is going to save you and your family when they lose their life savings. Question number 4, how do you stay current on key IRA tax rules? They should have an answer for that. What services or resources do you rely on to stay up to date? Can you show me a sample? Anybody who's not in this area, they would draw blanks. You'd get that deer in the headlights. I don't know. There are services. I study this stuff full time. I have tons of services. We pay tens of thousands of dollars in finding out what's going on in Washington at the IRS with the tax laws. Now, that's us because we teach other advisors. That's what I do. Your advisor shouldn't have to do all of that because obviously he has to spend some time with clients like you, but he should have resources, some resources that he can show you how he stays or she stays up to date. If he starts hemming and hawing and can't put his hands on anything, run, you've got the wrong advisor. Number 5, this is a tough one. What is the latest IRA tax rule you are aware of? Now, you might not know that rule, but they might say, oh, it's the rule for the stretch IRA. Then you say, when did that occur? Oh, well, that was 10 years ago. That's too late. You want to hear that something changed. Remember, these rules are changing every day. Every day the IRS issues rulings. Tax laws don't come out every day, but rulings on these IRA distribution issues come out literally every day. You really have to have somebody that's keeping up to date. It would be unusual. Well, I was going to say it would be unusual for somebody to say that the last rule I'm aware of is from a year ago, but that may be most advisors. Chances are the last rule, big thing that came up, was probably within a month. If they have even a monthly type of tax service, like a newsletter or something, they should be able to go there and say, oh, here's the last big ruling that came up. And this is the last, well, that would be a good answer. If they could show you some kind of newsletter they subscribe to, and it has all the latest rules for the month, that would be impressive. Question number 6, how do you determine the best option for my lump sum distribution? You want to see if they know anything about the tax break for net unrealized appreciation. Big company tax break that most advisors don't know about. Do they know about rollovers and how to do trustee-to-trustee transfers instead of rollovers? Do they know about 10-year averaging? Do they know the benefits of rolling to an IRA and setting up stretch IRAs? They should know all the choices, and there's basically about 4 choices. Leave it in the company plan, bring it to your new company if you got a new job, and roll it to an IRA or take a lump sum distribution. They should be able to explain so you can understand it. And this is an important thing too. If an advisor explains something and you don't understand it, because I went through this in the early years of me learning about the tax law when I used to go to other seminars, you know, I always thought it was me. I didn't understand it. And years into this, it started hitting me. If I don't understand it, maybe it's not me. Maybe he doesn't know it well enough to explain it to me in English. If he or she, this advisor you're questioning, doesn't know it well enough to explain it to you in easily understood terms, then they don't know it. Item 7, how would you keep track of my IRA beneficiary form? What? Well, that's a bad answer. They should have a system, a process saying, oh, look at my files. Now, I don't expect them, and they shouldn't show you other people's beneficiary forms, but they might show, well, this is where we keep copies of all our clients' beneficiary forms. And we update them when they have key life events, a birth, a death, a marriage, a divorce, you had a new grandchild. We have annual reviews or reviews when a life event changes things. That's a good answer. But if they say, I don't know, I guess they're at the bank, or we have them here somewhere, here, let me look under the couch, that hasn't been cleaned, that's a bad answer. They have to have a system. Beneficiary forms are critical, and keeping them up to date and current is critical. That is the estate plan for what may be your largest single asset, that IRA. If they can't give you an answer that you're confident with, and listen to the way they talk to you. Again, like when you go into that store, you know if somebody knows their stuff just by their demeanor, their confidence, the way they talk to you. Advisors that have this knowledge also have the confidence in explaining it to you. So use your sixth sense, and you'll see, you know, if he's very tentative or she's very tentative, well, I think it's here, I think it's there, that's the wrong advisor. Item 8. Can you show me an IRS life expectancy table? Well, that sounds like a real easy one. Anybody who really works in this area will have them all over the office. I know I have them behind my desk in every room in the office. Here, we even have them laminated. If when you ask that, show me a copy of the life expectancy table, and they say, I had one here 3 years ago. I don't know where it is now. Oh, yeah, we had lunch on it the other day. Yeah, we threw it out. That's a bad answer. This should be something that's all over the office if they're really doing this kind of work, and you need to know that. Item 9, question 9 to ask your financial advisor. Do you know what will happen to my IRA after I die? Bad answer? Don't worry about it. You'll be dead. That's a bad answer. They have to know something about telling you about the stretch IRA. Yes, we keep the beneficiary forms, and after you die, we know to tell the beneficiary how to properly set up a properly titled inherited IRA so that the beneficiaries, your kids or grandkids, get the stretch IRA, and they can stretch it out over their lives, and you'll help their children with that. That's the right answer from an advisor. Question 10. This is the question I really love. This kind of separates the men from the boys. The 10th question of our 10 questions to ask your financial advisor. As you see, we're kind of grilling them, but these are not hard questions for an advisor. Really knows their stuff, and you'll know it. Number 10, who do you turn to when you have questions on IRA distribution planning? They should be able to name somebody. Nobody can know it all. I turn to other people. I work with experts. An answer like, I know it all, don't worry about it, that's a bad answer. If they can't name one other expert they turn to, you're in trouble. What if you have an unusual situation? You want the advisor to wing it? That's a trouble spot. So you want to know that they have resources. What if they're away the week you die and something's wrong? Do they have backup? Do they have other resources? You should ask for names. Who do you turn to for expert IRA advice? Now you have these 10 questions, and here's what I want you to do. Now the scoring begins, and you're the judge and the jury here. It's based on your perception. For each of the questions, I want you to assign 1 to 10 score. 1 means total loser, not for me, doesn't know anything. 10, the greatest thing since sliced bread. For each of these questions, assign 1 to 10, 10 being the best, 1 being the worst. Then add up the score and see what it comes to. Now let's change the analogy. Forget he's or she is a financial advisor. Make believe they're your surgeon instead, and you're going in for an operation. What grade would be acceptable to you? Would you like your surgeon? 70's okay. I got a 70% chance of maybe coming through that. Maybe that's okay. See, you're the judge and the jury. This is the same version of that. Maybe it's not an operation, but it's a financial operation that could affect not only how much money you have today, but how much your beneficiaries will receive tomorrow. So you're the judge and the jury. And if you catch on any one of these 10 questions, you catch them on one of my BS detectors where you say, nope, that's BS, take off 30 points right there. You don't want that person. What's a good score? Well, that's up to you. I think any decent advisor should get 90 to 100. Really, that's what you should expect. This is all the money you'll ever have. There won't be any more. Now, what happens, and this is probably what's going to happen, you get to interview the advisor, then you interview another advisor, nobody passes the test. That's what you're going to find. That's exactly what I'm talking about. At least you know now that there's a problem and you have to seek out a trained advisor. Luckily for you, we have such a place to go. We have a national registry of trained advisors that have this specialized knowledge. And you can find that on our website at www.irahelp. That's www.irahelp.com. And if you go in there to the consumer side, you'll see a listing, a national registry of advisors, hundreds of them all over the country that I've trained personally. Any one of those advisors will get 100 on this test. I'd be surprised if they didn't. That's how you'll know the difference. So, test your current advisor, but I don't think, I hate to be negative, but remember, this is your money. You have one chance to get this right. You want to go in with the right advisor. And also, if you're looking to the future, remember what we're talking about here, stay rich forever and ever. If you're looking to the future, you also want an advisor that can work with your children and grandchildren. The competence has to cut through generations. You need the right advisor. The right advisor will give you more money for you now, more money for your retirement, and more money for your loved ones. If you have the right advisor will help you stay rich forever and ever. Good luck to all of you. Don't be afraid to use this test. I know some people are thinking, well, I don't want to ask all these questions. It's your money. Ask the questions or suffer the consequences. Good luck to all of you. Thank you. Thank you.